Statements by members. Déclaration de députés. L'honorable député de Halifax.
The Honourable Member for Halifax West.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate Masqua Aquatic Club on celebrating their 50th anniversary. Nestled in the waters of Kearney Lake in Halifax West, Masqua is one of Canada's largest and most committed and accomplished paddling club. It's where many in my community learned to swim, took out their first canoe or kayak, got summer work experience, or first hiked through Blue Mountain Birch Cove Lakes. After an incredibly well-decorated 2023, Masqua has done the unthinkable, and for a second year in a row, we're victorious in the Canoe Kayak Canada Sprint National Championships. Special shout-out to my constituents, Masqua athletes Emily Vadders and Matthew Brown, who just represented Canada in the 2024 Olympic Hopes Regatta in Hungary. Congratulations to head coach Christian Hall, Commodore Perry Giles, the board, coaches, athletes, parents, and supporters. We're all proud of your accomplishments, and here's to the next 50 years.
The Honourable Member from Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Thank you. September 23rd to 29th marks Rail Safety Week. This week serves as a reminder of the importance of keeping our railways and our train yards safe. As we acknowledge the tragedies of the past, we must recommit to the safety of our railways going forward. To our railway workers, you keep our economy moving. You keep Canadians moving. More importantly, you keep Canadians safe. The work you do every day does not go unnoticed. Every year, 375 million tons of freight move across our rails. Millions of passengers are taken safely to their destination. Conservatives will always be there to stand up for our rail workers because you're always there to protect the safety of Canadians. Thank you for keeping Canadians moving safely.
The Honourable Member from Don Valley West.
Speaker, I rise today to congratulate an organization close to my heart, Asthma Canada, celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. In 1974, patients, parents, community members, and leading physicians created an organization dedicated to helping Canadians with asthma lead healthy lives. Since then, its mission has been to ensure Canadians living with asthma enjoy a symptom-free life. 4.6 million Canadians live with asthma. I am one of them. Asthma attacks lead to approximately 70,000 hospitalizations and 250 deaths every year. It's serious. As the former president and CEO of Asthma Canada, I saw the hard work done by physicians, nurses, researchers, educators, administrators, and volunteers striving to engage, advocate, inform, and treat people living with asthma in a patient-centered health charity. Congratulations, Asthma Canada, on 50 years of excellent work. We look forward to 50 more years.
Well said.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. This year, the Association of Bookstores of Quebec gave the Award of Excellence to a bookstore in my riding. It's owned by a human reading expert. He can give you recommendations for all types of books, history, sociology. He is a true expert in running a bookshop, and he helps everyone in the Saguenay region. He is brimming with enthusiasm, and if you go to find him, you'll surely find him devouring books. This is the third time that the Librairie Marie-Laura bookstore has won this award. We are not ignorant about literature in my riding. Denis Laferrière said that oxygen is necessary for life, but a good book is oxygen for the soul. Congratulations. The Honourable Member for Saint-Léonard-Saint-Michel.
Mr. Speaker, this weekend I had the great pleasure of attending La Festa degli Anziani with a group of Giuseppe Garibaldi Seniors Club. This event to mark National Day of Seniors, which will be celebrated on October 1st, was an opportunity to highlight and be grateful for the contributions of our seniors in our communities.
We brought the retirement age back down to 65 years after the Conservatives had increased it to 67 years. We created the Canadian Dental Care Plan, thanks to which thousands of seniors were able to obtain dental care that they needed. We also increased the guaranteed income supplement by 10%. Our government has demonstrated on countless occasions that it is committed towards seniors.
The number of seniors living in poverty, that means thousands of lives have been improved by our measures.
Seniors are wise and very active in their communities. Seniors deserve our support. They're worth it.
Niagara West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As always, I want to thank the constituents of my beautiful riding of Niagara West for the honour to be able to choose and represent their voice in Parliament. I'd also like to recognize the parents, teachers and students from Heritage Christian School who are in Ottawa today. And I spoke with many of my constituents over the summer, and the overwhelming message to the Liberal government was call an election. Why? These are some of the issues they brought up. Skyrocketing prices of basic items like food and other groceries. Folks mentioned the price of gas. It keeps going up and up and up. And in my riding, a car is a necessity, not a luxury. They said taxes were making it impossible to pay the bills. The carbon tax, everyone wanted this horrible tax scheme scrapped. People were worried about paying for housing, which has doubled over the last 9 years. They mentioned the rising levels of crime, car thefts, and drug addiction. They want an election where they can choose a strong majority Conservative government that will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime.
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Louis.
Was at heart a storyteller, and he applied this gift as a teacher to impart knowledge and insights to his students about the world around them. Following a career in education, Dennis made the leap to politics. He was a campaign volunteer and then a constituency assistant to both my predecessor, Clifford Lincoln, and myself. Dennis worked for the No side in the 1995 Quebec referendum and was a leader in Pointe Claire's successful bid to regain its independent city status in Quebec's municipal demerger referendums in 2004. He then served 3 terms as a highly regarded Pointe Claire city councillor. After retiring from politics, Dennis remained active in community affairs. Among other things, acting as a sounding board and wise counsel to public office holders like myself. Dennis Smith believed in education and the politics of reason as fundamental to society's progress. To his wife Karen and son Adam, we extend our deepest condolences.
The Honourable Member for Orleans. Mr. Speaker, today, all Francophones and Francophiles of Ontario and I are celebrating Franco-Ontarian Day. This is a day where we are proud to celebrate our Francophone heritage. We are a strong community. We're united by our love of the French language and our desire for the French language to thrive in the generations to come. In my beautiful riding of Orleans, we are fortunate to have the MIFO Centre. It's a critically important organization whose mission is to support the Francophone community of Ottawa and Eastern Ontario. Recently, a federal investment was announced. There will be a new MIFO Centre built, so it will really thrive. I'd also like to pay tribute to an incredible Orleans Francophone, Denis Gagnon. He passed away on September 12th of this year. He was a pillar in our community. He inspired us with his monthly columns in the Orléanais publication. Happy Franco-Ontarian Day. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, Conservatives, like thousands of Canadians and Quebecers, no longer have confidence in this Prime Minister or in this government. The NDP kept this government alive on a respirator for months. Now the Bloc wants to take their place. They are not going to support us on our non-confidence motion. The Bloc Québécois must be totally desperate or not care in the slightest about Quebecers in order to save this Prime Minister who's so centralizing and costly. They're keeping this Prime Minister in power even though he's constantly overstepping and meddling with provincial jurisdiction. The Liberal government is going to threaten 1,400 forestry jobs through its decree. The only party working to save the forestry sector is the Conservative Party. The Bloc Québécois, they're terrible negotiators. They're ready to sell their souls rather than give Quebecers the country that they deserve. Will the Bloc finally vote to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime?
The Honourable Member from Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to celebrate the important work of Gen Well, a grassroots movement tackling one of today's biggest challenges, which is loneliness. As social beings, we thrive on human connection, but in a world where much of our interaction has moved online, in-person connections are more crucial than ever. Gen Well's efforts highlight the alarming reality, which is 50% of Canadians report feeling lonely. The World Health Organization even recognizes loneliness as a global public health concern with impacts as harmful as smoking. I commend Gen Well for their work and invite everyone to join tonight's nonpartisan event to support their mission of fostering human connection. I hope to see you all there.
The honourable member from Kildonan St. Paul.
After 9 years of the NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime's up, and time's up. Under the Liberal government, repeat violent offenders are getting bail and parole, and justice for victims is being ignored. In fact, 256 people were killed in 2022 by criminals out on bail or another form of release. That's 256 people that could still be alive today if not for this broken Liberal bail system. And just last month, a serial rapist was granted day parole only 4 years after he was convicted of sexually assaulting 5 women while working as a nightclub promoter. Is it any wonder that sexual assaults are up 75%, Mr. Speaker, over the past 9 years? And yet the NDP continues to prop up the Liberals and their soft on crime agenda. They continue to enable putting criminals before victims. But today they can do the right thing and vote non-confidence in this Liberal government. Only a Conservative government will deliver justice for Canadians and bring home safe streets.
The honourable member from Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up. Canadians won an election to decide the direction of this country and the future of the carbon tax. It seems that the NDP leader's pension is worth more to him than the hundreds of thousands of jobs that will be lost due to the quadrupling of this carbon tax. Even the radical NDP premier from BC has flip-flopped on the carbon tax, but not the leader of the federal NDP. He would rather be frenemies with the Prime Minister. Meanwhile, Canadians line up at food banks. The NDP can pull out of its costly coalition with the Prime Minister and vote in favour of our non-confidence motion. Trigger a carbon tax election. Today, on behalf of all Canadians, there's a chance to bring down this costly government. Will the NDP leader have the guts to give Canadians the elections they deserve?
The honourable member from Brampton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I was excited to welcome 56 members of the South Lake Seniors Club from Brampton who are visiting Ottawa to attend question period today. South Lake Seniors Club is a not-profit organization serving seniors in Brampton. Their aim is to stimulate thinking, encourage interest and participation in healthy activities. The club holds regular gatherings, providing opportunities to socialize and participate in cultural and physical activities. They also organize health-related seminars and yoga sessions, as well as bus tours like today's. Thank you, South Lake Seniors Club, for making a difference in our community. I would also like to thank all the hard-working parliamentary staff who have been so helpful in accommodating this visit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today members of Parliament will vote on Bill C-223 for a guaranteed livable basic income in Canada. While the affordability crisis is hurting all people, those who depend on a deteriorating social safety net are hit the hardest. That includes women and gender-diverse people fleeing violence, stuck in abuse because they lack the financial resources to leave. The reason for Call to Justice 4.5 of the National Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls to put in place a guaranteed livable basic income, something that every single member of Parliament in this House admitted to or committed to implement. Also, many senior women who do not have pensions because they spent their lives caring for families who live in poverty, while the many people in the disability community are subjected to legislative poverty due to insufficient programs like the Canada Disability Benefit. MPs need to ensure our constituents are provided with a level of financial support to uphold their charter rights. I urge all my colleagues to do so by voting in favour of the bill and stop punching down on people living in poverty.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. On July 17th of this year, Quebec lost an incredible unionist, feminist, sovereignist, and progressive, Régent Parent. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois, I wish to offer my sincerest condolences to his loved ones, his wife Pauline, and their children Marie-Hélène, Claudia, and Olivier. As a unionist, he championed the cause of education from the Syndicat de Champlain Union all the way to the presidency of the CSQ. He held the presidency from 2003 to 2012. As a feminist, he was a great ally of women who wanted to take their place in society, some of whom are here today, in fact. As a progressive and a sovereignist, he fought for the future of a Quebec based on social justice, and he was within the left wing of the Parti Québécois. On June 25th, in fact, he finished a column in a newspaper by saying, "I choose a French Quebec as a nation. Long live a free Quebec. Vive le Québec libre." Régent Parent, the Bloc Québécois, thanks you.
The Honourable Member for Miramichi Grand Lake.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of NDP Liberal imposed misery, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, time is up. 2 years ago, the NDP leader sold out workers. He signed on his costly coalition with the Liberal Prime Minister that hiked taxes, ballooned food costs, doubled housing costs, and unleashed crime and chaos in our streets. The sellout NDP leader voted to quadruple the carbon tax, a plan that will grind our
I'm going to invite the Honourable Member to start his SO31. Again, I know SO31s are important to all members, but I'd like to remind the Honourable Member to ensure that the language which is used is not directed to a particular member in a way that would not be parliamentary. The Honourable Member from Miramichi Grand Lake from the top.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal imposed misery, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and time is up. 2 years ago, the NDP leader sold out workers. He signed on to his costly coalition with the Liberal Prime Minister that hiked taxes, ballooned food costs, doubled housing costs, and unleashed crime and chaos right in our streets. The sellout NDP leader voted to quadruple the carbon tax.
I'm going to ask the Honourable Member to... I'm going to offer the Honourable Member to continue his statement following... If you could just start a paragraph before, I'll give him 25 seconds to finish his statement.
Canadians need a carbon tax election now to decide between this costly NDP Liberal coalition or common sense Conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. It's time for this NDP leader to support our non-confidence motion today or admit that he's sold out, thrown in the towel, and caved once again.
So all members, I just want to make sure that we understand it's important for us to be judicious in the uses of our words, especially in regard to each one of us who serve here. It is important that we may have our disagreements, but in regarding a specific person, we need to be very judicious in our comments because we are all colleagues. The Honourable Member from Ottawa West Nepean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I'm wearing a forget-me-not pin to recognize World Alzheimer's Month and to stand with the more than 700,000 Canadians living with dementia, a number projected to rise to 1.7 million by 2050. Dementia costs Canadians over $10 billion annually, but the personal toll on individuals and their families is immeasurable. In 2017, this House unanimously supported the National Dementia Strategy, and it remains vital that we continue to work to address this growing challenge. I want to thank the Alzheimer's Society of Canada for the essential work that they do in helping families in our communities and funding research for a cure. I am joined today by colleagues from all parties wearing forget-me-not pins. I wear mine for my Oma. Together, we can work toward a future where Alzheimer's and dementia are diseases of the past. Thank you.
Very good, very good, very good. Oral questions. Questions orales.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The Bloc is voting to keep the Liberal government in power, the most centralizing government in the history of our country. They added 100,000 public servants. They have doubled consulting costs, doubled debt, and the cost of housing. Is it not time to allow Quebecers to vote to cut their taxes, build homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime with a common sense government? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader is offering cuts for programs, cuts for services, cuts in the fight against climate change, all the things that concern Quebecers and all Canadians. They have nothing to offer but austerity and performances here at the House of Commons. They're continued to cut programs like dental care, daycare spots, an investment in pharmacare, an investment to grow our economy with green investments. We are going to invest in Canadians and Quebecers, and they're just there to cut. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. People who are poor are already seeing austerity because of cuts to their budget. They still don't have the means to buy a house, they say. And this dream just gets further and further away for some because the crisis just makes housing prices worse and everything else becomes excessively expensive. In Montreal, when I was housing minister, it cost $500 a month for an apartment. Is it not time to allow Quebecers to elect a government that will build homes? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, if this Conservative leader is so really concerned with single mothers, he wouldn't have voted against more daycare spots or voted against help for children with the CCB. He would not have voted against investment that we're making to create more economic growth for these children and to put more money back in their pockets. But when he was housing minister under Harper, he did nothing for affordable housing across our country, and that's not what we want to be repeated again. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
After 9 years of the NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. Today, we'll vote to trigger a carbon tax election between the costly carbon tax coalition of NDP Liberals who tax your food, punish your work, double your housing costs and unleash crime and chaos, or common sense Conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Why can't we bring it home today?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, again with the clever little performance of slogans he's memorized without any actual solutions for Canadians. He doesn't care about Canadians. He cares about his own political self-interest. If he cared about Canadians, he wouldn't have voted against dental care. He wouldn't have voted against more spaces at $10 a day childcare. He wouldn't have voted against initiatives that are growing the economy, putting more money in people's pockets. He wants a climate change election. Let's have that election in the right time where we're putting more money in the pockets of Canadians. This is not the time for that. We're going to continue to deliver for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, he just said he wants a carbon tax election on his plan to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre. If so, will he call it today?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I believe this on today we will see that this House does not have confidence in the leader of the Conservative Party. Mr. Speaker, we have delivered, are continuing to deliver, reduced emissions, more money in the pockets of Canadians, and success in the fight against climate change as we create jobs and build a stronger future. We are focused on delivering for Canadians the things that actually matter, while he's focused on slogans and clapping. Mr. Speaker, we're going to focus on being there for Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he's concerned that we're clapping for him. He agreed to a carbon tax election on his quadrupling of the tax to 61 cents a litre, where Canadians will choose between an NDP Liberal government that has taxed their food, punished their work, doubled their housing costs, and unleashed crime and chaos in their communities, or a common-sense Conservative government to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. He's bragging that he has more politicians on his side. Isn't it really the case that in Canada, the people decide?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, with the Canada carbon rebate, the price on pollution puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians right across the country. But we already know from his misunderstanding of carbon pricing that the Conservative leader doesn't understand math or economics. What's increasingly clear is he doesn't understand science as well. That's why I'd be happy to give him a briefing on the science of climate change. And good news on this one, it doesn't require a security clearance for it.
Order, please. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc announced a good faith proposal that was reasonable about topics that have already obtained the support of all parties in this House. I would like to know from the Prime Minister if he can give us his word that he will quickly consider the Bloc's proposal to benefit seniors and farmers. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we've already shown many times that our priorities include help for seniors and protection of supply management. We have shown this and will continue to do so. We'll continue to work with other members of this House to deliver for seniors and to deliver for our farmers. We know that there are concerns that we can work together on, and we're going to do so because we're always here to help Quebecers and all Canadians in these difficult times. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, here we go. This is a good opportunity. Seniors that for whom he cut their purchasing power, and farmers, not only in Quebec and in Canada, we need to be more specific in terms of the intentions. Will the Prime Minister start a conversation with his sometime partner in the NDP so that we can have this project come to fruition in the timeline set out? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are obviously going to look at this and debate to this bill, but if we want to be specific, I'd like to underscore that many seniors in Quebec and elsewhere in the country that I've spoken with this summer said that they saved hundreds of dollars with visits to the dentists that were covered by the Canadian Dental Care Program. And unfortunately, they don't understand why the Bloc is opposed to this care for seniors in Quebec. It saved them hundreds of dollars, and we'll always be here to save seniors money.
The Honourable Member from Burnaby South.
Privatizing healthcare means telling people you either pay up or go to the back of the line. Daniel Smith is privatizing healthcare in Alberta right now, and this Prime Minister is doing nothing about it. Doug Ford is privatizing healthcare in Ontario, and the Prime Minister praises him. Why is this weak Prime Minister letting Conservatives tear down our healthcare system?
I see that the Prime Minister is rising on his feet. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, on this side of the House, we have always defended universal health care, and we will continue to do. But the member opposite has a point. In those provinces, the NDP was unable to stop Conservatives from getting elected and weakening universal health care in all those places. That is why we are going to continue to stand up for universal health care, to stand up for progressive values, and indeed, to stand up to Conservatives.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Power to stop them, but it's too weak to do it. Les conservateurs.
Conservatives want to cut health care services. It's clear. When the Conservative leader and Stephen Harper were in power, they cut roughly $43 billion in health care. The Conservatives want to privatize our health care system like Doug Ford and Daniel Smith. Why is the Prime Minister allowing them to do this? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member knows full well that we're always here to defend our public healthcare system. We are here to invest so that Canadians can have greater access to family doctors. We're here to ensure that there are more mental health services. We're here to require greater accountability and transparency from provinces in terms of the record money we're sending them, and we'll always be standing up to the Conservative provinces that want to cut our health care services. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister that's cutting health care. His carbon tax will cost hospitals across this country in heat, in laundry services, in delivering medical equipment. Calculations by the Saskatchewan government show that the carbon tax will cost $175 million, equal to the loss of 1,900 nurses, all to pay the Prime Minister's greedy quadrupling carbon tax. Why won't he get his hands out of the pockets of the provinces and allow our premiers to fund health care?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The Canada carbon rebate puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families right across the country while it fights climate change, while it creates growth. Mr. Speaker, fighting climate change is about building a better future for Canadians. This summer alone, insurers are estimating that $7.7 billion in losses are being covered for that. That is something that we have to step up on right now. And the Conservative leader, who doesn't even believe climate change is real, wants to do absolutely nothing about it. That's not good for Canadians. That's not good for our economy.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Hospitals don't get the Canada carbon rebate. A measly little check would not replace the $175 million that Saskatchewan hospitals are going to lose to heat themselves, to power their machinery, to deliver their goods. And yet, that's what the Prime Minister imposes. 1,900 nurses could lose their jobs in one province alone because of his greedy carbon tax quadrupling. Why won't he accept our common sense plan to axe the tax and boost funds for health care?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will note that he voted against our plan to increase funding on health care to $200 billion over the next 10 years because he wants a two-tier system like most Conservative premiers in this country. The fact is, climate change will cost everyone in health outcomes, in growth outcomes, in harm to our economy, in harm to our future. He has no plan to fight climate change. Our plan not only fights climate change, it makes emissions lower, puts more growth on the books, and puts more money in the pockets out of 8 out of 10 Canadians, the middle class, and those working hard to join it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
More disinformation from a flailing and desperate Prime Minister clinging to power. I voted in this Parliament to increase health funding, and in the previous government voted to increase it by 70%, more than his government had. More than that, we did not impose a carbon tax on hospitals. He claims that people are going to get checks. 1,900 nurses could lose their jobs because of the carbon tax in one province alone. A phony rebate check will not make the difference. Now he wants to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre. How many nurses are going to lose their jobs while hospitals are stuck paying this quadrupling tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, he refers to the Canada carbon rebate as a phony check. At least he recognizes that it exists, which is new from just a few months ago. The Canada carbon rebate, as defined by, investigated by the Parliamentary Budget Officer, puts more money, hundreds of dollars, back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians, exactly the middle class and those working hard to join it, who need support while we fight climate change, while we reduce emissions, while we grow a stronger economy with good jobs for future generations. He has no plan for the economy, no plan for the future.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
My common sense plan is to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. But let's talk about education. The carbon tax will cost Saskatchewan schools $204 million. That's the equivalent of approximately 2,000 teachers losing their jobs, all to pay tax to heat schools in cold Saskatchewan winters. Why is the Prime Minister forcing provinces to cut teachers and education to pay for his greedy quadrupling carbon tax?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
He goes once again with his little performances, Mr. Speaker, the little rhymes and slogans. The reality facing Canadians right across the country, including in Saskatchewan, is wildfires, droughts, floods, issues that are being increased because of the impacts of climate change. And if we do not continue to take ambitious action, future generations will pay dearly for inaction by governments like the government in Saskatchewan. that he wants to emulate. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, we put more money in people's pockets while fighting climate change, and we're going to keep doing that.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, screaming and hollering, will not distract from the very serious question I asked. Can he tell us how many nurses and how many teachers will lose their jobs because his greedy carbon tax quadrupling will drive up costs to heat schools and hospitals? How many?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, teachers and nurses across the country are terrified of conservative policies that cut programs, that cut services, that cut supports for the most vulnerable, for those who work hard to care for other Canadians, whether it's their opposition to pharmacare, which would be delivering free insulin and free prescription contraceptives, whether it's investing in a school food program going to help 400,000 kids with more food right across the country. That leader has opposed the things that nurses and teachers care most about. So let's not take any lessons from that guy.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He goes from screaming and waving his arms around erratically when I mention the carbon tax to bragging about a program that doesn't even exist. His multi-million-dollar school food program hasn't served a single ham sandwich, a single little bowl of Kraft dinner, not one meal to one child. It exists to feed bureaucracy in Ottawa, not kids in schools. So once again, put aside the grand dramatic performances and answer the question: how many doctors, nurses, and teachers will lose their jobs because of the quadrupling carbon tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I think it'd be instructive to look at how many doctors and teachers have lost their jobs because of Conservative governments over the past number of decades, and that's exactly what this leader is proposing once again. I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, because I once had a job as a teacher, and I was proud of serving kids every day. I haven't just been in this House for 20 years like the Leader of the Opposition.
Colleagues. The Honourable Prime Minister, 15 seconds left on the clock.
Yes, I was proud to be a school teacher, Mr. Speaker, because it was a way of having a positive impact on the lives of thousands of kids over the course of my career. And I'm proud to bring their voices here into this House and continue to put forward how we support our kids, how we support the vulnerable, as opposed to the cuts that they propose.
That's right.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, it's not a race, but let's talk a bit about figures. The proposal put forth by the Bloc for seniors is roughly $1,000 per year for every senior. And it's not interference into the exclusive jurisdiction of Quebec. Dental care is up to Quebec, but OAS is up to Ottawa. If we respect the will of the national will of Quebec, it's fine. Otherwise, well, what's his choice? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, over the past few years, we've invested enormously to help seniors, and we're going to continue to look at ways of helping them. I think we can all agree that vulnerable people, we have to help even more, and that's what we're delivering, a dental care program. But like I said to my colleagues and provincial partners, if those who want to deliver the same program for the same costs we're very happy to talk to them about it. But for the time being, we are here to deliver for vulnerable people and seniors. Several thousand people across the country have dental care through our program. The Honourable Member, we can do both, right? These two bills we're talking about, tabled by the Bloc, are in advanced stages. They have been supported at various stages by all parties in this House. The necessary time was given to the government, and it should, even in theory, also garner the support of the NDP. Does he realize that he needs to deliver for seniors sooner rather than later? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, like I said, Mr. Speaker, we are here to deliver for seniors, and we did so and will continue to do so. In terms of the farmers, I made a promise, Mr. Speaker, that no new negotiations for free trade agreements would hamper them or remove anything from the supply management sector. We are here to protect our farmers. This is a strong commitment I made, and we are going to always respect that. We're going to continue to work together to protect farmers, to protect supply management, and yes, to help our seniors. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
2015, New York Times, headline, Life in Canada, home of the world's most affluent middle class. How things have changed after 9 years of NDP Liberals. The economy today, per capita, is actually smaller than it was 10 years ago. Per capita income has dropped more in Canada than any other G7 country since the year before COVID. The gap between U.S. GDP per capita and Canadian is now 50%, the biggest gap in 100 years. Will the Prime Minister recognize that taxing, punishing, and attacking our businesses is losing us jobs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
What the Leader of the Opposition refuses to accept is that cuts to services and programs that Canadians are relying on is not going to grow the economy, is not going to help anyone through. We have the strongest balance sheet in the G7 right now, the lowest deficit, the lowest debt to GDP ratio. Companies from around the world are investing in Canada because they believe in Canadians. We are wanting to set that strong fiscal position in service of Canadians who are hurting right now. We want to invest more in dental, more in supports, more in growth and jobs, and he wants to cut at this particular time.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, Canada has the worst mortgage debt, has had the worst housing inflation in the G7, and now has the worst GDP per capita change since the Great Depression, and the worst by far in the G7. Those are the devastating statistics that result in very real human costs. That's the reason we have 1,400 homeless encampments in one province alone and 2 million people lined up at food banks. Won't he realize that doubling housing costs and taxing people's food has very real human costs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when that individual was Harper's failed housing minister, he built 6 affordable homes across the entire country only. He did not help with the investments that Canadians needed. And his so-called housing plan that he talks about now, which is, again, more performance than substance, lots of slogans, no actual solutions, is not going to deliver for Canadians either. We're doing what he didn't do, which is work with housing advocates, work with municipalities, work with provinces, and deliver the homes Canadians need.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
When I was housing minister, rent and mortgage payments were half of what they are now, and there were almost 200,000 of those affordable homes built right across Canada. Now, this Prime Minister wants to bring in a massive tax on home builders with hikes to capital gains. Now, the most preeminent economist in Canada, Jack Mintz, reveals that would cost our economy 400,000 jobs and $90 billion. Where are those 400,000 unemployed Canadians going to be able to get the food and the money to pay their mortgages?
Before the Right Honourable Prime Minister takes the floor, I'd like to remind all members to please not take the floor when they're not recognized by the chair. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is instrumentalizing Canadians who are suffering right now to try and score cheap political points. What he is not offering is any sort of solution for Canadians. We put forward the most ambitious housing plan in decades because we know that working with municipalities, working with provinces, working with nonprofit agencies and charitable foundations is a way of delivering homes. I was just in Vancouver speaking to a young student who got into an apartment because of partnerships that this government set up. These are things that make a real difference in people's lives, but he doesn't care.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I will comment on one spectacular social housing project of his, and that is the brand new lavish apartment that he bought his friend, the new Consul General to New York. $9 million for his friend Tom Clark to have stunning powder room finished in jewel onyx, crystallo gold quartzite countertops, a handcrafted copper soaking tub, custom bronze bathroom fixtures, $5,000 coffee machine. Did the Prime Minister go and inspect this palace in the sky on his recent trip to New York?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, engaging with international leaders on fighting climate change, on solving global crises, on standing up unequivocally for Ukraine.
Colleagues, just as I said before, just as I said earlier, I would ask all members to please not take the floor unless they're recognized by the Speaker so that we can hear the questions and we can hear the answers. The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, don't worry, on this side of the House, we're used to casual homophobic comments from the other side of the House. Mr. Speaker, what is it about the...
Colleagues, I heard comments that because it was not on microphone, I chose not to get up. I would ask, nonetheless, that we all treat each other with the presumption of honor and respect. And I'll ask the Prime Minister to please withdraw that comment and to start his comment again under the colleagues. I heard a comment, as I said, which I could not stand up because I did not know who said it. But we should be. But colleagues, I don't appreciate when we would tar the entire members with that concern. And I'm going to ask the honourable member, please, to withdraw that comment, start his question again, and let us presume the better natures of all members of Parliament here. The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top.
Mr. Speaker, standing up to bullies requires us to call them out on their crap sometimes, and that's what I will do.
I'll invite the Prime Minister once again to rise on his feet. And thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I will happily withdraw my comment if the member who suggested that I was sharing a bathtub with Tom Clark stands up, takes responsibility for his...
As I had indicated to all colleagues here, I was not able to hear or track the source of that statement. And I'm just asking the Prime Minister to be the better person and to please just withdraw the comment and start his question again. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw the comment about defecating. I certainly, using the word crap, I shouldn't use that. I know crap is unparliamentary, but I will also, Mr. Speaker, when someone says something that is clearly homophobic, not them, I'm not accusing them of homophobia, I'm saying they made a homophobic...
I appreciate the Prime Minister withdrawing his comment, and the Chair accepts him withdrawing that comment. But as the Speaker had indicated, sometimes in this chair, and for those who have occupied this chair or who will occupy this chair will understand, it is a very difficult decision day to day. I heard a comment, I did not know who said it, and the Speaker chose, for the reputation of this House, for us to move on from that comment. I asked the Prime Minister to withdraw the comment. I appreciate you withdrawing the comment. The Prime Minister, please respond to the question that was asked by
Mr. Speaker, I know the very idea of standing up for Canada's rights and values on the world stage makes the Leader of the Opposition's skin crawl. What is it exactly? Is it standing up to fight climate change? Is it standing up for women's rights? Is it standing up for democracy rights and freedom of the press? Whatever it is, he sure doesn't like it when Canada stands proudly on the world stage because he wants everyone to think that Canada is broken. Well, Canada's not broken. Canada's the best country in the world, but we're going to make it even better.
The honourable member from Nunavut.
Nunavut are prevented from thriving by the lack of doctors and access to health care. The Conservative leader will want to cut health care, but they will have nothing to cut as the Liberals haven't invested enough in Nunavut. The Prime Minister failed on his promises to deliver the health care people need. When will the Prime Minister invest in the health care Nunavut need so they can thrive?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We signed a historic health agreement with the Premier of Nunavut, and we will continue to be there as they deliver health care across the territory. We know how important it is to continue to invest in health care for the North. We know how important it is to continue to defend public health care in this country. We will continue to do that, even though, as the member opposite rightly points out, Conservatives want to cut public health care. They want to kill public health care.
The honourable member from London Fanshawe.
This government has failed to help our seniors age with dignity. Instead of putting people first, they've protected the profits of companies and abandoned seniors. They've let Doug Ford tear Ontario families apart and force seniors into some of the worst private long-term care homes. The military even found that some of these corporations, including one that the Conservative MP for Thornhill lobbied for, weren't giving seniors food and water. Wow. Why won't the Prime Minister put our families and our loved ones before profits?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I agree with the concern the member opposite expressed on security and safety for our most vulnerable seniors. That's why in this House we're moving forward with the Safe Long-Term Care Act later this fall. We certainly are counting on the support of our progressive friends from the NDP, but we hope that all members in this House will stand up and support a Safe Long-Term Care Act because we need to make sure we are protecting and supporting our most vulnerable seniors right across the country.
That's right.
The honourable member from Yukon.
Mr. Speaker, as National Truth and Reconciliation Day approaches, Yukoners in my riding and Canadians everywhere will be reflecting on the painful history of First Nation, Inuit and Métis children being removed from their families and communities, some of them never to return home. For generations, Indigenous peoples were stripped of their cultures and languages. Canada must continue to address the truth and support their healing. Could the Prime Minister inform the House on the government's efforts to rebuild relationships with Indigenous communities and to demonstrate that every child matters?
Great question.
Good question.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I want to thank the member for Yukon for his question and for his deep commitment to reconciliation. On September 30th, we reflect on a dark chapter in Canada's history, one of residential schools and colonialism. We reflect on the ongoing impacts to survivors, their families, and their communities. We are delivering on the calls to action and reconciliation by moving forward on UNDRIP, and we established the National Council for Reconciliation. Indigenous leaders and survivors are guiding our approach. We continue the journey to reconciliation. We will not go back.
That's great.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister says the way he stands up for Canada is by buying a $9 million mansion in the sky for his crony Tom Clark. Well, he goes on Broadway late-night shows to say that I want to applaud that he said that it was a small issue that the Americans had illegally taken $9 billion of our softwood money and cost tens of thousands of jobs. Conservatives got a deal on this in 80 days after taking offices. He's had 9 years and 3 presidents. Why does he keep letting the Americans walk all over him?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I was glad to have the chance to speak directly to millions of Americans in this crucial moment and make the argument directly to them that we've been making to policymakers that U.S. tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber hurts American citizens and consumers. And when I go on American television, I make sure to talk up Canada, unlike the member for Calgary Nose Hill who talked down Canada to Tucker Carlson, unlike the member from Thornhill that went on Fox News to talk down Canada. I will always stand up for Canada proudly.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Only he didn't stand up. He backed down. Yes. He's been backing down for 9 years, during which time 3 presidents have imposed illegal tariffs that Conservatives had originally got taken off. And recently, Biden doubled those tariffs, causing 500 mill workers to lose their jobs in British Columbia. They must have been watching that show, seeing the Prime Minister say that their unemployment and their now poverty was a, quote, small issue. Why is it that he thinks he's such a big shot that the jobs of working people are a small issue?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that the Leader of the Opposition really didn't like that I went down to New York City to talk directly to Americans. Perhaps he would have been happier if I accepted an all-expenses-paid trip perhaps down to Florida to appear at an anti-abortion church. I know he would have been all right with that, because that's what he allows of his own members.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Falsehoods will not change the reality. His record is this. Common sense Conservatives got a softwood deal that reimbursed $4 billion of tariffs the Americans had collected within 80 days of taking office last time. Those tariffs were slapped back on under this Prime Minister, and he's capitulated ever since, not collecting $1 of the tariffs back. In fact, President Biden has now doubled those tariffs. He capitulated on Buy America, capitulated on softwood, capitulated on the Keystone Pipeline. When can we have a government that stops capitulating and starts standing up for Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's the deepest of ironies that during the existential renegotiations of NAFTA, it is the Conservative Party's position that we needed to capitulate to the United States and to Donald Trump. That is not what we did. We stood firm. We protected steelworkers. We protected auto workers. We protected agricultural workers and our dairy farmers. We continue to stand up to Americans while we protect jobs in this country, while they were saying, ooh, it's too important. You need to give in to the United States. We didn't. We stood strong. We came out of that with a win-win right across the board.
That's right. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président, il a capitulé.
He signed a deal that kept tariffs on softwood. Tariffs which the Conservatives had previously managed to get rid of. He caved in on Buy America, which discriminates against our companies. He caved in on Keystone, and now Canadians are investing $400 million more in the U.S. than the opposite way. Why has he caved in and let down our construction and forestry workers?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, you should be very careful about reminding people what things were like under Harper when he was on the governing side. Canadians remember very clearly what it was like under that government, which didn't invest in people, which cut back on services, on our armed forces, on police and childcare. They cut all the programs that Canadians depend on and didn't create the growth that Canadians need. We will continue to invest in Canadians and stand up for our steel and aluminum workers. We will be there to defend jobs in Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I'm scratching my head here. I'm wondering how we might not get there, because everyone agrees with the Bloc's bills. So I imagine everyone will continue to support them. The NDP, the Conservatives, the Liberals, all supported our bills. So I wonder if the government will get it in gear, because time is running out for farmers in Quebec, and leaders of all parties have agreed. So in order to get there by the end of October, something's got to give. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy to know that the Bloc may be there to support our dental care program for seniors, because that's helping a lot of seniors. We're talking about millions of Canadians, including Quebecers, who've had access to dental services when the Bloc was against the program, but we managed to get it delivered all the same for thousands of people, and we will be there. We will still be there to help seniors with dental care and to invest in their future with housing, and we will be there to deliver the necessary services. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. With that kind of logic, that's how the Liberal government has got to the edge of the precipice. So they should perhaps change their approach a little bit, maybe a little less sparring and a bit more substance. So he says he agrees with being there for seniors and protecting supply management. Everyone agrees. There's been unanimous support. So we need those two bills to get through. Are we going to move forward on this? Yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the direction of this government has always been to move forward, moving forward on investments for our seniors, investments for jobs, for the next generations, moving forward on the fight against climate change and economic growth at the same time. We will be there to work constructively with everyone who wants to deliver the goods for Canadians here in this place. And I'm glad that we're going to continue our constructive and productive conversations with the Bloc Québécois. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He proposes to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre on seniors, small businesses and single moms. The Prime Minister spent his summer in a frenzy of high carbon, high taxing, high flying hypocrisy. Newly released data show that he went 92,000 kilometers. In flights on average every 2 days, he went 300,000 liters of jet fuel. Why is it that he punishes working class Canadians with his quadrupling carbon tax when he flies around burning more and more jet fuel?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps if the Leader of the Opposition had actually met with Canadians or talked with media or been out there across the country over the course of the summer, he would have heard the fact that Canadians need support from government programs and services. Canadians want to see $10 a day childcare. Canadians want to see support on dental care. Canadians want to see a national school food program. These are all things that he wants to cut because that's all he's offering Canadians. That shows me he wasn't listening to Canadians he was talking to. He was just making sure he could use them to advance his own political aims. We're offering salute.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
So there you have it. He was charging Canadians for his 92,000 kilometers of flights so that he could go around repeating the promises that he's broken nationwide while taxing them. And his plan is to hike that tax to 61 cents a litre. Mr. Speaker, he emitted more carbon than 114 Canadians combined this summer. Why does the Prime Minister drive people into poverty, children into hunger, with promises he breaks and hypocrisy that he cannot reconcile?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, now Canadians know, Mr. Speaker, in the unfortunate event that that guy ever ends up Prime Minister, he's going to stay at home in his basement on YouTube the whole time instead of meeting with Canadians.
Yeah, that's
right. The Honourable Leader of the The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we can resolve that question right now with a carbon tax election. Mais on sait que le Premier ministre ne veut.
But we know the Prime Minister doesn't want to do that because he has such a bad record on the environment and on the economy. It's not just tax hikes, but Canada is now ranked 63rd out of 67 countries when it comes to the effectiveness of our fight against climate change. So that's the hypocrisy. He's doing nothing for the environment. Is he not willing to try to defend his disastrous record before Canadians? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are starting to see that the leader of the Conservative Party has no plan whatsoever to fight climate change, no plan to put more money in Canadians' pockets while fighting climate change, and clearly he doesn't understand that the only way to create an economy for the future is to deal with the environment at the same time. So the Conservative leader's refusal to understand the absolute necessity of continuing the fight against climate change shows how completely out of touch he is with Canadians and Quebecers. The government, the right of women to choose is a fundamental right. Many fear that the Conservative leader and his party will not protect this fundamental right. Does the Prime Minister agree that a party that doesn't defend women's right to choose cannot be considered a pro-choice government? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to thank the member for London West for this fundamental question. Canadian women are concerned when they see the Conservatives, the member for Cypress Hills Grassland, going to Florida, all expenses paid, to promote a future without access to abortion. They are concerned when they see the member for Yorkton Melville, the Conservative member, proposing that not just once, twice, but 3 times proposing limits on access to abortion when the leader votes the other way. The Conservative leader may appear to be many things, but he certainly cannot pretend to be pro-choice. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Well, we've already said that we wouldn't change the law on abortion, and what he's saying is completely false. We will protect women. We will protect women with legislation against violence that has shot up by 53% after 9 years of this Prime Minister because of his policies that releases the most violent reoffenders. Now, will the Prime Minister allow Quebecers to vote to stop crime by putting true criminals behind bars and by making our border safer? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, women in Canada know full well that to be pro-choice means standing up against all those who seek to limit women's rights, who seek to take rights away from women, as we've seen in the U.S., and what we see from this Conservative leader over and over again is that he is incapable of standing up to members of his own caucus who would like to limit access to abortion and who even vote in favor of measures. He even votes in favor of those members. It's shameful, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Completely false, and I could use another word outside of the House to describe stating a falsehood knowingly, but we'll save that for when we are outside the House. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that after 9 years of this Prime Minister's policies, gun crime is up 120%, as he's put all the resources into targeting lawful, law-abiding, trained and tested duck hunters and blown $67 million without recovering a single solitary gun that he promised 4 years ago to ban. Why wouldn't we let Canadians vote to stop the crime and put the real gun criminals in jail?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, every time the Leader of the Opposition stands up to rhyme off his little show, all his MPs
And ask the Right Honourable Prime Minister to start from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, every time the Leader of the Opposition gets up on his feet to rhyme off his little show, his party members applaud enthusiastically. But the 2 times he just stood up to suggest that he is perhaps pro-choice, silence from his team, Mr. Speaker. He cannot protect women's rights from the members of his own caucus, Mr. Speaker. That's not standing up for women. That's not protecting the future. That's not freedom in this country.
Colleagues, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, what we're seeing from this erratic performance today is a Prime Minister who's like a...
Can I ask the Honourable Member from Richmond Hill to please stay quiet as the Honourable Member has the floor. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition from the top, please.
Beyond the normal fear and falsehoods, what we're seeing from this Prime Minister today is someone who is erratic and lost control of himself because he is so desperate to hold on to power. My question was about car theft. My next one is about Nanaimo drug dens. Drug dens which now are funded and authorized by this government through a permit under the Controlled Substances Act, which was now cracked down upon by police officers for trafficking illegal substances and having 13 weapons. Will the Prime Minister stop giving the permits for these illegal drug dens so that we can stop the crime and bring home safety?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we recognize that far too many Canadians have been impacted by the opioid epidemic, by the toxic drug crisis. That is why we're doubling down on science and supports on the street. We're there to look at ways to help families through this, to deal with addictions, to lift people out of poverty. And yes, we will partner with people right across the country to do that on things that make sense in their jurisdictions. We're going to stay grounded in science while the leaders opposite choose their ideology as guiding paths.
Yeah, very good.
The Honourable Member from Steveston, Richmond. Richmond East.
Throughout the summer, I met with my constituents and listened to what's on their minds. They want rapid construction of new housing options. They want their kids to have the best possible start in life with $10 a day childcare and nutritious food in the schools. They want to build an economy that works for everyone. They know that in order to do this, we need to make our tax system fair. Mr. Speaker, could the Prime Minister please update this House on the government's plan to create fairness for every generation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for Steveston, Richmond East for his question and his hard work. This is about fairness for every generation by building more homes, making life more affordable, and creating more good-paying jobs. And today, the House will vote on our plan to make the tax system fairer. We know that fairness is the last thing the Conservative leader and his party care about, and that his agenda is filled with cuts to housing, health care, and freedoms. Well, on this side, we stand with Canadians.
The Honourable Member from Edmonton, Griesbach.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Israel's horrifying and indiscriminate bombings of Lebanon continue, and Canada is nowhere to be found. Hundreds of civilians have been killed, including 2 Canadians and dozens of children. There are tens of thousands of Canadians in Lebanon. Our constituents are terrified of what will come next. Canada must immediately call for de-escalation, take real action to create peace and safety for everyone in the region. When will the Prime Minister act to save Canadians in Lebanon and their families?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, over the past days, I've spoken with Lebanese Canadians who are deeply worried for their families, and our hearts go out to the loved ones of the 2 Canadians killed. We need to see de-escalation right now from both Israel and Hezbollah. I spoke with leaders this week, including the King of Jordan and the UN Secretary General, along with G7 allies, on the need for urgent de-escalation. Civilians need to be protected. This violence needs to stop, and we need to move on a path towards regional stability and peace.
The honourable member from Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And on the same point, it's clear that world leaders have been calling out for the last year since the horrific attacks of October 7th for restraint and to control the conflict so it doesn't spread as it just is spreading into Lebanon. And we know who the enemy of peace is. Unfortunately, he has a name. He's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And he has put his political career and his...
Colleagues, I'll ask you to please only to take the floor when you're recognized by the chair. The honourable member from Saanich Gulf Islands, one moment, please. I'm going to ask the honourable member from Saanich Gulf Islands to conclude her question. She has 10 seconds on the clock.
Mr. Speaker, is that we are allies of Israel, but Israel's Prime Minister is unpopular. He's put his personal ego and political career ahead of rescuing Israeli hostages, and he seems to care nothing about innocent civilians, whether in Gaza.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the violence in the Middle East needs to stop. We need to see hostages released. We need to see Hamas lay down its arms. We need a ceasefire. We need to get back on a path towards a two-state solution where you have a peaceful, secure, democratic Israel alongside a peaceful, secure, democratic Palestinian state. That is Canada's position. That is what we are working with friends and allies and partners in the region are. That's what we will continue to work on every single day to bring peace and stability to that region.
And so comes to an end of question period. The honourable member from Edmonton Griesbach is rising on a point of order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. During question period, we clearly heard a very derogatory, homophobic, and cowardly comment coming from the Conservative benches directed at the Prime Minister. Clearly, Conservative MPs heard it because many of them started to laugh. I have listened to the feed on Parvez, and we can hear the remark. Yes. I urge you, Mr. Speaker, to review the tapes and come back with a ruling. Thank you very much.
I thank the honourable member from Edmonton Griesbach for his intervention. I will take it under advisement and come back to the House if this is necessary. It being 3:34, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division of the motion of Mr. Poilievre relating to the business of supply.